Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the cryptoverse. Today we're going to talk about Ethereum, and we're going to be looking at its valuation against USD and against Bitcoin. If you guys like the content, please subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up. Also check out the Telegram channel, which you can find a link to in the description below. Let's go ahead and jump in. So we've talked endlessly about this theoretical sustained move of Ethereum against Bitcoin in Q1. And so far, I think we can say that we've done a pretty good job. Remember the end of December, right down here. We had a very explosive week as we went into January. The second week continued as higher. And you might say, well, Ben, what about this? Well, my friend, this is a new weekly candle that started yesterday. So let's not jump to any strong conclusions just yet. It's not necessarily, this does not necessarily mean that that's it, and we'll see you next January. Okay, it just means that, as we said before, when Bitcoin has a knee-jerk reaction, or sorry, when Bitcoin has a fairly significant drop, right? It was dropping pretty hard here. When Bitcoin has a fairly significant drop like this, Ethereum will have a knee-jerk reaction to it. It's as simple as that. And if you've been following the channel for a while and we're accumulating Ethereum down here and over here, then who cares, right? Do you get out of bed for this? Probably not. You know, I still own the majority of Ethereum, but did I skim some profits off the top because I'm up 10 to 15x depending on, the actual price that I got in at? You can bet your, let's keep it family friendly, but you can be rest assured that, in fact, I did skim some profits. And the reason for taking profits is not because I don't think Ethereum will not go higher. I do think it will trend higher over the market cycle. But it's just to say, you know what, up 10x, the market is extended. If Bitcoin does have a significant correction, I at least want to say, you know what, I saw this move go up 10 to 12x or so, and it's time to take profits, long-term capital gains, call it a day, move on. There'll be plenty of opportunities, right? Plenty of opportunities. With that said, I still own the vast majority of my Ethereum, and I'm ready to watch it go much higher. Okay. So there's a misconception that I find in the space, and maybe it's perhaps that I just don't communicate it clearly enough, as I might on other channels. But just because someone stops buying something, or just because they might be skimming profits off the top, does not mean that they're hoping that the price of Ethereum will depreciate in the short term. It's just a manner or a method of systematically reducing risk, so that in the event of a further Bitcoin capitulation, at least you have yourself somewhat covered, and you can say, yeah, I watched that move for the last year. It went up over 10x, took some profits, live to fight another day. Now, with that said, we want to take a look here. Is this move necessarily over? And as we've said before, moving into Q1 is 3 months. Okay, we're not even 2 weeks into Q1 yet. So Q1 is going to be more than 12 weeks, right? 13, 14 weeks or so. So if Q1 is around, say, 14 or 15 weeks and we're 2 weeks in, there's no way we can say that this run is definitively over. It just means that, as we said before, Bitcoin has corrected, okay? And it had a pretty sizable correction too. And be that as it may, a 27% correction by Bitcoin, followed by a surge back of approximately 16% so far. Ethereum, despite all that, Ethereum is still sitting pretty strong at almost $1,100, okay? So Ethereum is still doing quite well. If you take a look at the Ether Bitcoin valuation, what do we see? Well, we're back in our uptrend channel. This was the channel we followed for basically all of 2020. Let's take a look. Same channel. Same thing. Down here, and here, and here, and here. And then, of course, Ethereum was so nice to us, right? So nice to us that it blessed us with the typical Q4 dip and capitulation in December. And we talked about this for months and months. I'm sure some people just wanted to stop watching my channel because of how often I spoke about this impending move of Ethereum against Bitcoin. And here we are. The capitulation wick in December and subsequent momentum shift in January. And you can feel, that Ethereum has that strength against Bitcoin. Because if it didn't, if the altcoin market were fairly unhealthy, then we know, as we've seen in prior months, in December, how many of you guys were watching Bitcoin's price in December? If Bitcoin even went down like 0.01%, it was like capitulation for the whole altcoin market. Okay, now Bitcoin corrects, and Ethereum more or less stays with it. It doesn't necessarily go down a lot more, which is great because we actually want to see higher returns for Ethereum. And right now, it seems like the downside volatility is not that bad, right? It's not that bad in terms of looking at the Bitcoin move. So one of the things we know is that if Bitcoin further corrects, okay, if Bitcoin continues to correct, Ethereum will in fact correct with it. However, we're looking at the Ether Bitcoin valuation. Remember, this move of Ether is against Bitcoin. So what we want to see is it could be a similar type thing as we saw in 2017, 2018. And let me show you what I mean. If we were to go back in time, let's go on a journey together. If we were to go back in time and look at 2017 and 2018, what do we notice? Okay. Now, first of all, we're not saying that Bitcoin is necessary. Oh, this is 2019. We're not saying that Bitcoin is necessarily at its peak for the cycle or anything like that. I mean, I feel like this cycle still has a long way to go. There's going to be corrections along the way. There's going to be major capitulations along the way. But I do think it'll generally trend up over the next several years. I reserve the right to be wrong, and it's not financial advice, but that's just what I think. Now, if we go back in time, what happened with Bitcoin? Well, on December 7th, it had a pretty nice correction, but really the peak for Bitcoin was December 17th. But we know that Ethereum had a major move in January. So what did it take for Ethereum to really make that major, a subsequent major move? And when we talk about major move, let's go look at it on the Ether Bitcoin chart. So it started in look at this. I mean, it started the week of December 11th, December 18th, Ether Bitcoin continued to go up. Hold up a second, but Bitcoin had already peaked. Why would Ethereum be going up if Bitcoin already peaked? Or why would it be going up against Bitcoin? Well, Bitcoin came down, it dropped 29%. We're not going to count the wick because I'm telling the story and it fits better if I use this. 29%. Today, let's look. Bitcoin USD. How far has it come down so far? Okay, how far has it come down so far? Well, to where we currently are, from the top of the candle, about 9% or so. From the top of this wick, around 16%, and to the bottom of this wick, around 28%. So we've seen these types of capitulations before. With Bitcoin, it actually rallied back up after it. From the bottom of the candle, it rallied back up around 17, 16% or so. If we were to go back and look at the present day, let's switch this over to the daily time frame. So far, this is a wick. I mean, the day still has a little ways to go. I guess it's actually going to end in 30 minutes from the time I'm making this video. But it's rallied back up about 16%. So there's some similarities here. But despite the fact that Bitcoin had put in its top, and despite the fact that the next top was a lower high, at the time, we didn't know that. Of course, in hindsight, it's like, oh yeah, this was the top. At the time, it felt like there was a decent chance that it could rally on, right? I mean, that's what it had been doing for years. I mean, since early 2016, that's what Bitcoin did. It corrected and then it went higher. It corrected and then it went higher. Much like it's done since October. It corrects and then it goes higher. And maybe this is another time where it corrects and then it goes higher. We don't necessarily know that that's not the case, but even if it's not the case, even if Bitcoin doesn't go higher, does that necessarily mean the Ethereum's move over? No, it does not, because if you look at this, during this time period, as measured from December 17th to the following peak on January 7th or so, Bitcoin dropped 14% as measured from peak to peak. But between December 17th and January 7th, so December 17th and January 7th, okay, that's what we're looking for. December 17th is right here. So let's take a measured move right here to January 7th. Ethereum went up during that time about 40%. During the same time that Bitcoin was dropping from its peak to its next peak of 14%. So what did we see? We saw strength of Ethereum against Bitcoin, and that's reflected in this move in December, okay? But Ethereum didn't stop there. It kept going up despite the fact that Bitcoin corrected back down again. And Ethereum kept going up until it was like January 13th or so, somewhere in that ballpark, around January 13th, January 14th. Okay, Ethereum kept going up till January 14th. What was Bitcoin doing on January 14th? Well, Bitcoin was all the way over here. Okay, it was back down to 14K. From the peak, it was down about a modest 30%, and it was right before it was about to fall off a cliff. It was right before it was about to fall off a cliff, and when it fell off this cliff, that was when it was over, right? The party was over, and it was time to go home. But you can see, during the time, Bitcoin had this high, and then it had a lower high, but it was trying to hold on. It was trying to hold on. And then when it became clear that it wasn't going to hold on to the $13,000 level on, mid-January, when it broke through, that corresponded basically to the top. Okay, if you look at the Ethereum USD valuation, it peaked on January 13th. Once it was clear that Bitcoin was breaking 13K, it wasn't, at least in the short term, it wasn't going to, hold this as support and then ultimately continue higher. Once that was the case and it became abundantly clear, from here, Ethereum simply kicked the bucket and dropped like 90% or more. Okay, so just because Bitcoin's dropping and just because Bitcoin's not putting in higher highs does not prohibit Ethereum from doing its own thing. It's been a Bitcoin party since October. I mean, Q4 is Bitcoin's time. Q1, historically, a lot of times, not always, but a lot of times, Q1 is followed by Ethereum doing well. Okay, Ethereum does well in Q1, historically speaking. And we've showed charts where we color code the year based on whether Bitcoin's above the 20-week moving average or below it for the entirety of Q1. Well, I mean, so far, if you were to look at the Bitcoin bull market support, we're still well above it. We're not even close. The Bitcoin bull market support band ranges from 18.2K up to 20.7K. We got a lot of people saying, well, if this market cycle's so different, maybe the 20-week SMA isn't that important. Well, it turned out to be the case that it was, because we said if we hold it over here, sentiment can change on a dime. Did I think it was going to go to 42K? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Did not think that at all. Here we are. Ethereum's at 1,077. I did skim some profits off the top. I'm not going to lie. I'll be honest with you guys. With that said, I want to see it go higher because I still own the majority of my Ethereum position, and I'm just managing my risk so that if Bitcoin does come crashing back down in the short term, then Ethereum will correct with it. But, scenarios where Ethereum could continue to shine would be if Bitcoin comes into some range like this, where it where it's not really clear if the run is done for the short term or not. And if it starts turning sideways for a few days, a few weeks, something like this, right? This was around 25 days. If it starts doing something like that, then Ethereum USD could run. Ethereum USD could continue to run. Just because Bitcoin is not putting in higher highs does not mean that Ethereum can't run against Bitcoin. And if Ethereum runs and Bitcoin's done running, then we still have a chance. Let's look at our monthly moving average. Then theoretically, we still have a chance to make it home back at our 50-month moving average. We visited the 20-month, and again, a huge opportunity, and now we've moved back up. We're currently right around here, still in our general uptrend channel that we've been in for since 2020. Momentum shift in the price of Bitcoin. If we were to go up to this valuation of 0.0414, well, remember, as we said before, the price of Bitcoin is not invariant, and because it's not invariant, we have to consider that we have to change the price that we're multiplying it by. So if we say 35,000 times 0.0414, then that would put Ether at 1449. So even if Bitcoin stayed constant at 35K, it's still theoretically possible that Ethereum could come back up to its 50-month moving average against Bitcoin. Will it definitively happen? I have no idea. Right? I have no idea. I don't think that necessarily trying to predict the market to a T is that useful, because I mean, if I could predict it to the T, it would make everything a lot simpler. But I think it's more important how you react to the market, and if you react in a way that continues, it helps you to live to fight another day, because maybe you do take some profits off the top, then it's just something to consider. So we're still looking here. Q1 is 3 months. We still have plenty of time to get there. And the main way that we could get there, the most explosive way, in fact, that I feel like we could get there, is if Bitcoin just calms down. We've said this all along. If it just calms down. Not only Ethereum did well in January, it was altcoin mania in January, and that was after Bitcoin had put in its local top. So if we're able to see a Bitcoin stabilize, at these levels, if we go back to the present day, if we can see a Bitcoin stabilize at these levels, which it might be a tall order considering what it's done, but if it does, and it doesn't necessarily give us any clear indication as to what it's doing, then that could catalyze an Ether move. It simply could catalyze an Ether move because of how extended Bitcoin is. There is a ton of money. I do feel like there's a lot of not so smart money pouring into the space right now. They're looking to see, okay, where do we put it? Do we put it in Bitcoin? I don't know. It's up 3x in a month, or in a month or two. I saw a comment on Reddit today. I thought it was hilarious. This guy said, he's like, oh, I sold at 42K. It took Bitcoin 12 years or something to get to 12K, and then it only took it another month to go up 3x. It was a no-brainer. Thought that was an interesting way of looking at the market. But anyways, so we've been rambling on for a while. The point is we know that Ethereum will correct with Bitcoin. If Bitcoin corrects, we know that Ethereum will correct. If Bitcoin continues to correct, Ethereum will continue to correct. It's not that complicated. But if you're like me and you've been following, if you've been following this regression band here, and we were talking about the accumulation phase of a lifetime, the reaccumulation phase of a lifetime, are you phased by this? You don't even get out of bed for it, right? You set your limit order if you want to take some profits, go to sleep, call it a day. And if it keeps on moving, you didn't really lose much from it, because you were buying in here, you were buying in here, and in the future you'll buy likely in this regression band again whenever we get back down to it. It could be next month, it could be next year, it could take us 4 years to get back down to it for all we know. And by the time we get back down to it, Ethereum could be the fair value could be well over $1,000 by that point. So we probably will come back down to it at some point, but we want to see how high these things can run. So remember, altcoins, there's been a lot of people when it comes to altcoin season and saying, okay, well, this really isn't altcoin season because, Bitcoin's still running and I don't see everything going up 300% a day. Remember, each cycle is going to have slightly diminished returns. So the market becomes wiser, the market caps are higher, it's going to take more volume to move these coins. Expect it to not be quite as insane as last time. Right? Just expect that. If you see something different, then great, right? Just great. But manage your expectations so you don't think, oh, well, it went up, 100x last time. It has to go up 100x this time before I'm going to sell. So last time, the market did not, the altcoin market did not move until after Bitcoin had a nice correction and it cooled off. We've had a nice correction. We don't know yet if it's going to cool off. If the volatility of Bitcoin remains high to the upside or the downside, it will likely negatively affect the Ethereum Bitcoin valuation. If Bitcoin calms, maybe it calms back down here, it comes back down, it comes back up. I don't know. If it can stabilize for a while, then Ether could run. And one possible scenario to consider is a scenario where maybe we have this, it capitulates and then it comes back up, and people think we're having, we're going back up, and during this time maybe Ethereum does perform really well. But then if Bitcoin then does jump off basically just come off this cliff and come back down, there still could be enough time for Ether to make a major move before it comes down as well. So the main scenarios here, right? Let's just go through them. If Bitcoin just goes back up and puts in higher highs, then in the short term, then Ether Bitcoin will likely bleed, but Ether USD will likely go up because Bitcoin will drag Ethereum up with it. It won't drag a lot of the altcoins up with it, but it'll drag Ethereum most likely. So Bitcoin goes up, Ethereum USD likely goes up. If Bitcoin goes sideways, there's a good chance that Ether USD and Ether Bitcoin go up, and the Ether Bitcoin ratio. So Ether going up with respect to Bitcoin and it going up with respect to USD. So that's scenario number 2. Scenario number 3 is Bitcoin continues to bleed. This would be the scenario where Ether USD goes down and Ether against Bitcoin likely goes down. And if that's the case, do we care? Well, if you came into the space at $1,300 or 42K for Bitcoin and $1,300 for Ether, which I told you guys was a very risky time to be coming in, if you came in there, you have to be aware of the downside short-term risk. And you've experienced that now. So it's a lesson. If you were over here, buying over here, or even here, because Ethereum's so nice, it gave us one last chance before going parabolic, you don't care. You don't care. Maybe you take profits up here just to skim some off the top. Maybe you don't. If it does come back down, you've seen what can happen. Back into accumulation mode. That's what we did for over a year. We'll continue to do it if we need to. If you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up. I know this video was somewhat repetitive, but I just wanted to hammer home the point that a Bitcoin correction to 35K does not necessarily implicate or does not necessarily mean that the party is over. So subscribe to the channel. Let's go for 90,000 subscribers. Give the video a thumbs up. Check out the Telegram channel. You can find that in the description below. And we also have the premium list at intothecryptoverse.com if you're looking for a little bit of extra content that you won't get on the public channel. So make sure you guys subscribe, turn on alerts, thumbs up to the video if you guys enjoyed it. Remember, we don't do affiliate links here, no paid promotions, none of that nonsense. Let's just stick to the unfiltered opinion, my unfiltered opinion on the data for whatever it's worth, and we'll leave it at that. We'll see you guys next time. Bye.